So again, we're in these 4 quadrants that you make on your page, and this is page 3. We're going to first draw kind of an isosceles triangle, but instead of having that bottom straight across, we're actually going to put a curve on it, and that's going to make it look more three-dimensional, like a cone versus a triangle. Over here, we're going to draw an ellipse. Okay, we're going to draw an ellipse, and we're going to pull these lines straight down.
Okay, so you ready to
One.
do it? Okay.
2, okay? And to make this again look three-dimensional, we're going to curve the bottom to match the curve of the ellipse that we have here at the top. Okay, and I'm just sketching this lightly because we're going to be shading this later, okay? So that's number 1 and 2 in these quadrants. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle, and I'm not using a compass. I'm just sketching this out very lightly. Okay, and that's going to be my sphere. And then the most tricky thing that we're going to draw is we're going to draw a cube. So what we're going to draw is kind of a stretched out, like triangle shape, right? We're going to draw 2 vertical lines down from the ends, just like so. We're going to mimic that shape that we just created down here. See that? We're going to draw a vertical line here, and then we're going to connect those lines. All right. So these are the preliminary sketches that we're going to do to create our three-dimensional forms, like so. All right. So from there, we're going to use value shading to determine, where our shadows are going to go, where our dark areas are going to go, as well as our highlights. So we're going to place just a little circle here. This is going to indicate our direction of where our light is coming from. So top right of each one of these is going to be where our source of light is going to be. So things that are not being hit by light are going to be in shadow, and those are going to be the areas here on the left-hand side of each one of these objects. Okay? So we're doing this together. So we're going to start first with the cone. Is everybody ready? Everybody have all 4 of these sketched out? Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to determine where our shadows are going to go. And so I'm going to place a line here and right here, determine my shadow. This is kind of a generic, if we're not, observing this phenomenon, with a three-dimensional object, like a still life with, a lamplight, we're just going to make a generalization. Same thing over here for the cylinder. We're going to draw kind of the edge of our shadows, just like so. Same thing here, with the exception of like the sphere. We're going to kind of elongate and make almost an elliptical shadow. Okay, that's going to go outside of our format. Okay, and to our cube, same kind of thing. And these are, again, generic kind of semblances of what shadows would look like with that light source. But the best way to do that would be to actually draw from life, meaning that we would set up these still lifes with a light source, a lamp of some sort, to really cast these shadows and draw from life and draw what we see. But these are just going to be kind of academic generalizations for you guys to gain the experience of doing this without a still life being set up. Okay? All right, so we're going to start with shadows on the left-hand side of each one of these objects. We're going to start with the cone. And on the left-hand side here is where we're going to go. First, again, kind of a distant grip like we did with the gradient value chart that we built earlier. And we're going to slowly build up our values using this left-hand line of the cone as our boundary of where we're going to put our shadows. We're going to start building up our values, going towards the right-hand side where that light source is, slowly. And we're going to leave a little bit of like lighter values on the bottom right here, because those are going to be for our reflective light. This is the first day of drawing a boot camp, y'all. Also in Google Classroom, I'm going to put a flyer out for you guys to look at. There's a pumpkin carving contest. If you're interested, Mr. Ishler from the middle school is sponsoring it, so there's going to be prizes. And there is a bit.ly link for you guys to upload images of your carved pumpkin. The deadline is going to be, I believe, November the 2nd. Like when we get back from the Halloween weekend. Okay? So again, I'm moving towards the right. I'm going to keep this little strip of white here. Okay? I'm going to just indicate that. And I'm going to go back here. Again, these are going to be my darkest values here on the left-hand side. And moving towards the right, they're going to get lighter and lighter. Now this is just me going back and forth to even out my values. Okay, also, now I'm going to go down to the shadow, okay? I'm going to start to shade in the shadow. Again, building up my values slowly, using kind of a distant grip. And again, leaving a little bit of space for reflective light. A lot more going on in the shadows than we initially know. Like when you start doing these exercises, you start seeing the world in a different way, catching those little details that you might overlook during your day. So I'm first laying down these values. I'm going to go over them. Start adding more pressure. My shadows, my cast shadows, these are the cast shadows. They're going to be a little bit darker in certain areas than the shadows here on the cone itself. Does that make sense? all see that? Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So again, this is going to be on Google Classroom for you guys to upload images later on. Okay, it's important that you keep all of your drawings kind of in sequence too as well. All right, so we're going to go over to the cylinder now. Okay, sharpen the pencil a little bit. Again, make sure you're using the Kimberly 4B that's in your art kit. We're going to do the same thing kind of with the cylinder. Again, our darkest values are going to be on the right-hand side. Our lighter values will be on the left-hand side. Okay. I'm going to start by shading. Again, distant grip. Keep that distant grip nice and loose. Not too much pressure. You're building up value slowly. Don't try and force it. And I'm building up, and I'll be going back over this too as I'm building my values. And I'll leave that white space and gradiate to it, meaning that I'm going to change values from darkest to lightest as I'm moving from left to right. And I'm smoothing everything out. Please don't use your finger to smudge. What happens when you do that is you're mixing your skin oils with the graphite. And what happens is you create kind of like an oil paint, really. And then it's really hard for you to erase because now you've created an oil paint. You can't really use an eraser to lift out finger oils, as been mixed now with the pigment of the graphite. So, all right, so we have a good little run here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to darken these values here. I'm going to leave a little bit of the lighter values down here. All right, darken these, darken this. Add a little bit more pressure as I go, creating more of a contrast, right? Slowly feathering left to right. Okay, so here's the thing. On the top here of this ellipse, which is the top of the cylinder, we're going to do, there's a light coming in and highlighting, right? Just gonna give a little bit overshadow there, but the rest of it's going to be hit by light. Right here, bottom, and start working on that shadow. Again, a little bit of reflective light, just a little sliver, little moon slice. And then darken here. Slowly build up. Clean, clean, clean. And build up slowly. Again, moving from left to right. There's our cylinder. Okay. Am I going too fast, guys? Sage, am I going too fast? Dope sauce. Dope sauce, thank you. All right, now I'm gonna go down to our sphere. Okay, right now it's just a circle with an ellipse. What we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of indicate a reflective section of the top, just a little ellipse basically up there. Same thing, we're gonna leave a little space on the bottom here. I'll just do a little indication. That's gonna be reflective light coming up from the table or whatever it's sitting on. And we're going to start here on the left-hand side. Start our shading with a distant grip. The new vocabulary of the world right now is you're on mute. You're on mute. I don't know if you know this, but you're on mute. Let me check into a meeting. So we're gonna come across here and we're gonna start slowly building up our values, okay? So we're gonna do a combination of things like cross hatching, where we're shading in one direction, right? And going over with another direction. We're also going to use curving marks. And building up dark values using those curved lines. Yeah? And this is how you make things look three-dimensional. You can do this with like baseball, volleyball, marble, ping pong ball, etc. So our darkest values are going to be on the bottom here. So I'm going to use pressure. Just increase the pressure a little bit on my pencil as I'm shading. And again, kind of like in the same thing that we did with the gradient value chart, is we're going to transition from left to right, darker to lighter values. So notice how I'm doing that. I'm slowly feathering those values in. My darkest values are going to be on the far left. You guys see that? Okay. I'm going to leave a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. A little bit of, not quite white, not quite light gray, just kind of a lighter tone down there. Kind of blend it. It's going to be reflective light coming off the table. And then over here, right here, is where I'm going to put right next to it the dark values of the cast shadow of the sphere. That contrast is crucial to make it look three-dimensional. slowly gonna come over here and build up my values and smooth everything out. Oops. No, actually might be beneficial. And again, the darkest part of my shadow is going to be on the left-hand side. All right, there's my sphere. We're down to one more object. Okay. All right, here we go. So we're moving on to the cube. And again, if I'm going too fast and you need to rewatch this, this is going to be on my YouTube channel for you guys to access. All right, so we're going to come over here to the cube. We have 1, 2, 3 sides of the cube to be considered of. So this side of this cube is furthest away from the light, so it's going to be the darkest. This one is going to get some light, but not all of it, and this one will be pretty much just a highlight on the top here, okay? So we'll do the darkest side of the cube first. Again, distant grip, and we're going to leave a little space down here at the bottom for cast light from the surface, or reflective light, excuse me, reflective light. There's so much terminology I have to keep track of as an art teacher. Thank goodness it doesn't change. Like science, you know, where it's like, oh, Pluto used to be a planet, now it's not. Now it's a moon, or a large celestial object, but no longer a planet. Even though for my entire upbringing, it was a planet. Even though it was quite small. Smaller than some of the moons that orbit Jupiter and Saturn. So now I don't know what it's called. I think it's just a celestial body. It's been demoted. So again, I'm slowly building up the value. I'm using directional changes in my shading, cross-hatching, to fill in the values for the cube. See that? So I'm going diagonal. Horizontal, vertical. Okay, so the next darkest is going to be this side. So I'm going to slowly, I'm going to go at an angle here. Slowly go at an angle here. Think again of the gradient chart that we did together. And then I'm going to go with vertical strokes here, and then horizontal strokes. Okay? Alright, and then the cast shadow from the cube. Slowly build up these values. Again, I'm leaving a little bit of space for that cast or the reflective light from the table. Just a little bit. Not quite as dark or not quite as bright as the top of the cube. Just enough. Slowly building up the values here. And there you have it, guys. 4 objects that we now created using value shading to make it look 3-dimensional, to create depth on the page on the 2-dimensional surface of your sketchbook on page 3. All right. Do you guys have any questions before we close our session?